The massive space station called Kepler Prime floated silently in the darkness between stars. Inside its main meeting room, tension filled the air like a thick fog. 12 different alien species had come together for one purpose: to deal with what they called the human problem. Ambassador Jiwoo Park sat alone at the large round table. Her simple black business suit looked plain compared to the strange and colorful appearances of the aliens around her. Some had multiple eyes, others had skin that glowed, and a few didn't even have solid bodies. They all stared at her with different kinds of eyes, but the message in each gaze was the same: anger. War Queen Vexthera was the first to speak. She looked like a giant insect with razor-sharp claws and compound eyes that reflected the room's lights. When she talked, her mouth parts clicked together in a way that made most humans feel sick. Her voice came through a small device that translated her alien words into human language. "For 3 years your kind has spread across space like a disease," Vexthera said, her voice dripping with disgust. "You build colonies where you have no right to be. You ignore boundaries that have existed for thousands of years." Next to her sat Korvac, who represented the Crystalline Empire. His body looked like it was made of living diamond, tall and beautiful but cold. When he spoke, his voice sounded like music, but angry music. 47 star systems now have human settlements. This ends today. Jiwoo didn't move. Her face showed no emotion as she listened to the complaints. Around the table, other alien representatives nodded their agreement. There was the Nethys Collective, beings made of gas who floated in special containers. The Axis Dominion sent robots with glowing red eyes. Each species was different, but they all agreed on one thing: humans had to be stopped. Above them all floated Chancellor Mordain of the ethereal race. He had no solid body, just a shape made of pure energy that glowed with soft blue light. He was old, very old. His people had ruled parts of the galaxy since before humans learned to make fire. "The solution is simple," Mordain said, his voice echoing strangely in the chamber. "Your species must leave all disputed territories immediately. You must stop building new military ships and bases. Most importantly, you must accept our guidance and control over your future development." The other aliens made sounds of agreement. Some clicked, others hummed, and the robots made electronic beeping noises. They were all sure that the lone human would have no choice but to accept their demands. Jiwoo finally spoke, her voice calm and quiet. "And what happens if we refuse?" War Queen Vexthera laughed, a sound like breaking glass bottles. "Then you will face the combined military power of 12 civilizations. We have been conquering worlds and ruling star systems while your ancestors were still living in caves and hunting animals with sharp sticks." The other aliens joined in with their own versions of laughter. The gas beings swirled in their containers. The crystal people chimed like bells. The robots flashed their lights in patterns. They all found the idea of humans refusing their demands very funny. But Jiwoo didn't seem scared or worried. Instead, she stood up slowly from her chair. Her movements were careful and controlled, like someone who had practiced this moment many times in her mind. "In that case," she said in the same calm voice, "I'm afraid these peace talks are finished." The room exploded into chaos. Every alien began making noise at the same time. The insect queen clicked her mandibles so fast they sounded like machine gun fire. The crystal beings rang out in harsh, discordant tones. The gas creatures swirled frantically in their containers, creating small storms. The robots' lights flashed red in alarm patterns. Chancellor Mordain's glowing form suddenly blazed much brighter, casting sharp shadows across the room. "Foolish human," he boomed, his voice now carrying the weight of his ancient authority. "You cannot simply walk away from this negotiation. We are offering you a chance to survive as a species under our protection and guidance. You have exactly 72 hours to reconsider this decision," he continued, his light pulsing with each word. "Return to your leaders. Tell them what we have offered. Make them understand that our patience, while great, is not infinite. Do not make the mistake of thinking our willingness to talk means we are weak." Jiwoo walked toward the exit door, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. Every alien eye, sensor, and detection device followed her movement. At the doorway, she paused and turned back to face the assembled representatives. "I understand your position perfectly," she said, meeting the gaze of each alien delegate in turn. "But I think you may have misunderstood ours. You shouldn't mistake our willingness to leave these talks as an act of surrender." With that, she walked through the door, leaving behind 12 very angry alien civilizations who were certain they had just witnessed the death sentence of the human race. As the door closed behind her, the aliens began planning the military campaign that would teach humanity its proper place in the galaxy. None of them suspected that the quiet human ambassador had just delivered humanity's declaration of war. Captain Jaemin Lee stood on the command bridge of the human warship called Defiance. Through the large windows, he could see the stars twinkling in the darkness of space. But his attention was focused on the glowing screens that showed him what was happening across the galaxy. Alien fleets were moving like angry swarms of bees, gathering their forces from dozens of star systems. Lieutenant Hygiene Kim sat at her communication station, her fingers dancing across the control panel. She had been monitoring alien radio signals for the past hour, and what she heard made her worried. She turned to face her captain with a concerned expression on her young face. "Sir, we're getting calls from 17 different alien species," she reported. "They all want to talk about something they call terms of human compliance. It sounds like they think we're going to surrender." Captain Lee smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a wolf might make when it sees a flock of sheep. "Let them think whatever they want," he said. "Soon they'll learn the truth." Meanwhile, back on Kepler Prime Station, Ambassador Jiwoo Park walked into the same meeting room where she had been just 3 days ago. The alien representatives were all there waiting for her. They looked pleased with themselves, like children who had just won a game. They expected her to return with news that humanity had decided to accept their demands. But Jiwoo's face showed no signs of defeat or worry. She walked to the center of the room with the same calm confidence she had shown before. The aliens watched her carefully, expecting to hear words of surrender. "The United Earth government has made its decision," Jiwoo announced, her voice clear and strong. "We formally withdraw from all galactic treaties. From this moment forward, we no longer recognize the authority of this council over human affairs." The room fell silent. Chancellor Mordane's glowing form flickered like a candle in the wind. His energy body pulsed with shock and disbelief. "You cannot simply ignore thousands of years of galactic law," he said, his voice trembling with anger. "We can and we have," Jiwoo replied, her words cutting through the air like a sharp knife. "Human colonies will defend themselves by whatever means we think necessary. Any hostile action against human settlements will be met with our own response." War Queen Vexthera rose from her living throne, which was made from some kind of alien creature that still breathed and moved. Her insect body was covered in natural armor that gleamed with built-in weapons. Small laser cannons and poison dart launchers were visible along her arms and back. "Response?" she hissed, her mandibles clicking with amusement. "Young species, you face the combined military might of 12 ancient civilizations. Our fleets have conquered entire galaxies while your ancestors were still learning to make simple tools." Jiwoo turned toward the exit door, her movements slow and deliberate. Every alien in the room watched her, waiting for some sign of fear or regret. Instead, she spoke without looking back. "Then may the stars themselves bear witness to what happens next," she said calmly. "You had your chance for peace. You chose war instead." As she walked through the door for the last time, the alien representatives began shouting and making their various species sounds of anger. But Jiwoo didn't hear them. She was already thinking about what would come next. Her small shuttle left Kepler Prime Station and headed back toward human space. As it traveled through the darkness, hidden human ships watched from the shadows. One of these ships was called Shadow Runner, and it was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen before. Commander Do-hyun Choi stood in the Shadow Runner's secret command center, surrounded by screens showing alien fleet movements across 3 sectors of space. His ship was completely invisible to alien sensors, using technology that bent light and energy around the vessel like water flowing around a stone. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we're intercepting massive alien communications. They're mobilizing everything they have. Bioships from the insect people, crystal armadas from the diamond beings, mechanical dreadnoughts from the robot civilizations, and even dimensional weavers from the energy creatures." Do-hyun nodded grimly. He had expected this. For 3 years, humans had been quietly watching and learning about their alien neighbors. While the aliens thought humans were just building simple farming colonies, they had actually been preparing for this exact moment. "Send the signal to all human forces," he ordered his crew. "Operation Thunderstrike is now active. It's time to show these aliens what humanity really learned during our 3 years of so-called peaceful expansion." Across human space, hidden bases suddenly came alive with activity. Weapons that had been disguised as mining equipment revealed their true purpose. Ships that looked like simple cargo haulers dropped their fake outer hulls to show the military vessels underneath. Space stations that appeared to be research facilities opened up to reveal massive gun batteries. The aliens had spent 3 years dismissing humans as a primitive species that was expanding too fast without proper planning. They thought human colonies were weak and poorly defended. They believed human technology was thousands of years behind their own advanced systems. They were about to discover just how wrong they had been. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans spent 3 years preparing for something, they didn't just prepare to survive, they prepared to win completely and permanently. The real war was about to begin. Admiral So-Young Jang stood inside the control room of what the aliens believed was just a simple mining station. The room had thick, bulletproof windows that let her look out into space. Through those windows, she could see something that made her heart race with excitement and fear. A massive alien fleet was approaching their location in the Kepler 7 star system. The ships looked like giant sea creatures swimming through the darkness of space. They pulsed with strange lights and seemed to breathe like living animals. These were the bioships of the Zephyrian Empire, and there were many of them. How many enemy ships are coming? So-Young asked her second-in-command, Major Taeho Nam. Taeho looked at his computer screens and counted carefully. 200 bioships, Admiral. From what we can tell by listening to their radio signals, they think they're about to attack a helpless farming colony. They expect an easy victory. So-Young allowed herself a cold smile. For 3 years, the aliens had watched humans build what they thought were simple colonies for growing food and mining rocks. The aliens had no idea what humans had really been building during that time. "It's time to show them what we actually built here," she said, pressing a large red button on her control panel. Suddenly, the empty space around their location exploded with light. Massive military platforms appeared out of nowhere, their invisibility shields shutting off all at the same time. The space that had looked empty just seconds before was now filled with huge weapons platforms, each one bristling with cannons and missile launchers. The Zephyrian fleet found themselves surrounded. Instead of attacking a defenseless farming colony, they were now trapped in the middle of a military base that had taken 3 years to build and hide. Captain Miniseo Yoon was flying her small fighter ship called Wraith through the battle. She watched through her cockpit window as something amazing and terrible happened to the alien bioships. Tiny robots, so small they couldn't be seen with normal eyes, were eating the alien vessels. These nanobots had been designed by Earth's best scientists specifically to attack living ships. The Zephyrians had conquered hundreds of worlds using their bioships as weapons, but they had never fought an enemy that could turn their living vessels into food for microscopic robots. The alien ships began to writhe and twist in space like wounded animals. Their organic hulls were being consumed from the inside out. What had once been their greatest strength was now becoming their greatest weakness. In a different part of the galaxy, Commander Songjun Park watched from his invisible cruiser as something even stranger happened to another alien fleet. The Crystalline Empire had sent their most powerful ships to attack what they thought was a human research station. These ships were made of living diamond and were considered nearly indestructible. But as Park watched, the entire enemy fleet simply disappeared. The ships didn't explode into pieces. They didn't retreat by flying away. One moment they were there, and the next moment they were gone, as if they had never existed at all. "Where did they go?" asked his science officer. "They're trapped in dimensional bubbles," Park explained. "Our quantum manipulation technology pulled them out of normal space and time. They're still alive, but they're stuck in a place where they can't affect our universe anymore." Back at the main battle, War Queen Vexthara's voice crackled over the radio frequencies that all ships used to communicate. Her transmission was being sent to every alien fleet in the galaxy, and her voice was filled with panic and disbelief. "This is impossible," she screamed through her translator device. "The humans are using weapons that break the basic laws of physics. How can they make matter disappear? How can they turn our bioships against us? This violates everything we know about science." On a hidden base built inside one of Saturn's moons, Colonel Eugene Lee listened to the alien queen's panicked transmission. She was surrounded by her staff officers, all of them monitoring the battles happening across multiple star systems. When she heard Vexthara's words, she couldn't help but laugh. "They're not violating the laws of physics," she told her officers, shaking her head with amusement. "The aliens just never bothered to learn what we discovered during those 3 years they thought we were being quiet and peaceful." While the aliens had spent those 3 years arguing about human expansion and making plans to control humanity, the humans had been doing something completely different. They had been studying, learning, and developing new technologies that the galaxy had never seen before. The alien fleets that had approached human space expecting easy victories were now running away as fast as their ships could carry them. Behind them, they left burning wreckage and the growing understanding that they had made a terrible mistake. The Zephyrians, who had ruled through biological warfare for thousands of years, watched their living ships die from human nanobots. The Crystalline Empire, whose diamond ships had been unbeatable for millennia, saw their entire armada vanish into dimensional prisons. Other alien species faced equally shocking defeats as humans revealed weapons and technologies that seemed to come from science fiction stories. The galaxy was waking up to a new reality. The young species they had dismissed as primitive and weak had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. And humanity's preparation had been far more thorough and deadly than anyone could have imagined. Fleet Admiral Dongwook Kim stood on the bridge of his enormous command ship called Retribution. The ship was so large that small fighter craft could fly through its corridors. Around him, dozens of screens showed battles happening across 7 different sectors of the galaxy. But these weren't close battles where both sides had a chance to win. These screens showed the complete and total defeat of alien forces everywhere. What had once been proud alien fleets were now burning wreckage floating in space. What the aliens had thought were simple human farming colonies had revealed themselves to be the most advanced military network the galaxy had ever seen. "Give me a report on our situation," Admiral Kim ordered Captain Boram Shin, who was his second-in-command and closest advisor. Captain Shin looked at her data tablet and read the information with barely hidden amazement in her voice. "Sir, the ethereal chancellor himself is asking us for surrender terms. The robot civilization called the Axis Dominion has lost 70% of their mechanical war fleet. And the gas beings of the Nethys Collective are trying to surrender by making shapes with their gas clouds, since they don't know how else to communicate defeat." Far away on a planet called Zirian Prime, General Chan Young-oh stood in his underground command bunker, looking out through thick armored windows. The city outside had once been the proud capital of the Crystalline Empire's territory. It had been considered one of the strongest and most beautiful cities in the galaxy, with buildings made of living crystal that sang in harmonious music. Now those crystal buildings were broken and burning. The city that had taken thousands of years to build had fallen to human forces in just 6 hours of fighting. "Sir," said Lieutenant Hae-won-young, his young assistant, as she listened to radio messages from across the galaxy. "We're getting surrender messages from 43 different alien species. They're all asking for the same thing. They want us to show them mercy and not destroy them completely." The aliens were learning something they had never experienced before. For thousands of years, they had fought wars according to strict rules and traditions. Battles happened in open space where both sides could see each other. There were ceremonies before fighting began. There were rules about which weapons could be used and which planets could be attacked. But humans fought differently. They used tricks and deception. They attacked from unexpected directions. They used the aliens' own weapons against them. They fought not just to win individual battles, but to make sure their enemies could never threaten them again. On board a small, invisible ship called Night Terror, Commander In-ho Cha had just completed a mission that would be talked about for centuries. He had captured the ethereal chancellor's personal flagship, the most advanced ship in the known galaxy, without firing a single weapon. The Chancellor's ship had shields that were supposed to be impossible to break through. It had technology that was millions of years more advanced than anything humans should have been able to understand. But Commander Cha had found a way to turn the ship's own defensive systems against itself. The Chancellor's broken and confused voice came through the radio, broadcasting to every alien ship in the area. "How is this possible?" he asked, his voice shaking with shock and fear. "Our shields cannot be broken. Our technology is millions of years more advanced than yours. Your species was using stone tools when we were already traveling between stars." Commander Cha's response was heard by every alien commander in the sector, and his words would be remembered forever. "The age of your technology doesn't matter," he said calmly, "when you've never had to fight an enemy that refuses to follow your rules." This was the lesson the galaxy was learning the hard way. The aliens had become comfortable with their way of fighting. They expected their enemies to behave in predictable ways. They thought there were certain rules that everyone had to follow in warfare. But humans had spent their entire history fighting against each other in the most brutal and creative ways possible. They had learned every possible way to wage war during thousands of years of conflict on their home planet Earth. When they came to space, they brought all of that knowledge with them. The aliens fought with honor and ceremony. Humans fought to win permanently. The aliens announced their attacks ahead of time and met their enemies in fair combat. Humans struck from the shadows and used surprise as their greatest weapon. The aliens tried to defeat their enemies' military forces and then negotiate surrender terms. Humans destroyed their enemies' ability to ever fight again. As Admiral Kim watched the tactical displays on his command ship, he could see the results of human military thinking spread across the galaxy. Alien fleets that had ruled space for millennia were now begging for mercy. Civilizations that had never known defeat were surrendering unconditionally. The young human species that the aliens had tried to control and limit had revealed itself to be the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever seen. In just a few days of fighting, humanity had gone from being a minor annoyance to becoming the dominant power in their region of space. The aliens were learning that when humans prepared for war, they didn't just prepare to survive the current conflict. They prepared to make sure no future conflicts would ever threaten their people again. The galaxy had awakened a sleeping giant, and now it would have to live with the consequences. 6 months had passed since the war began, and Ambassador Jiwoo Park was returning to Kepler Prime Station. But everything was different now. She was no longer coming as a representative hoping for peace talks. She was coming as the new ruler of this entire sector of space. The space station itself looked different too. Human engineers had been working on it for months, adding new sections and improving old ones. The station now had sleek metal surfaces and efficient designs that were clearly human in style. Most importantly, it had powerful weapons that made it clear who was in charge now. Director Jin Hong was waiting for Jiwoo when her ship arrived at the docking bay. Jin was a practical woman who had been put in charge of managing the day-to-day operations of their new territory. The former council members are all here and waiting for you, Jin reported as they walked through the station's corridors. All 12 species have requested meetings about joining something they're calling the Human Colonial Authority. They're all very eager to cooperate. Jiwoo nodded but said nothing. She remembered how those same alien leaders had treated her 6 months ago, when they had demanded that humanity submit to their control. Now the situation was completely reversed. They entered the same circular meeting room where the original peace talks had taken place. But now the room had been rearranged. Instead of the aliens sitting around the table as equals, there was one large chair at the head of the table where Jiwoo sat down. The alien representatives sat in smaller chairs arranged in a semicircle, like students sitting before a teacher. War Queen Vexthera was the first to speak, but her voice was completely different from before. 6 months ago she had been proud and threatening, her insect body gleaming with confidence and built-in weapons. Now her natural armor looked dull and cracked. Her voice was so quiet that the translation devices had to work hard to pick up her words. What are your terms for us?" she asked, unable to look directly at Jiwoo. Jiwoo looked around the table at the assembled alien representatives. These had once been the most feared leaders in the galaxy. The War Queen had conquered entire star systems. The ethereal chancellor had ruled with technology that was millions of years old. The Crystal Empire speaker had commanded fleets that could shatter planets. Now they all sat before her like defeated children, waiting to hear their fate. Behind Jiwoo's chair stood Chancellor Mingyu Yun, who was now the military governor of this sector. He was a tall man with stern eyes who wore a simple but impressive uniform. His presence served as a quiet reminder of the military force that had brought these proud aliens to their knees. "The terms are simple," Jiwoo said, using the same calm, controlled voice she had used during the original negotiations 6 months ago. "Accept human leadership over this region of space. Contribute to the stability and growth of our expanding territories. In return, you will benefit from our protection and access to our technological advancements." The ethereal Chancellor Mordain tried to speak up. His energy form, which had once blazed with ancient power, was now dim and flickering like a candle about to go out. "And if we choose to refuse these terms?" Before Jiwoo could answer, Admiral Sujin Kong stepped forward from her position by the wall. She was the military commander who had planned and executed the campaign that had crushed the alien resistance in just 6 months. "You won't refuse," Admiral Kong said simply. "You've all seen what happens when you choose to oppose us." Jiwoo raised her hand to quiet the admiral, though she didn't disagree with the woman's words. "The choice is entirely yours to make," she told the aliens. "But I want you to understand something important about what happened here." She paused, making sure that every alien representative was paying attention to her words. "Humanity never wanted to join your galactic community," she continued. "For 3 years we watched you and studied you. We were evaluating whether your civilizations posed a threat to humanity's future survival and growth." The aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats as they began to understand what she was saying. "You failed that evaluation," Jiwoo said quietly. "You proved that you could not coexist peacefully with a species that refused to submit to your control. You chose to threaten us with military force rather than accept us as equals." Captain Yijun Lim, who now served as the military attaché for all the former council territories, began distributing small tablet computers to each alien representative. Each tablet contained detailed information about what would be expected of them under human rule. "These tablets contain your integration protocols," he explained. You have 30 days to begin implementing the changes described in these documents. Failure to comply will result in direct military intervention. One by one, the alien leaders took their tablets and quietly left the meeting room. They no longer made the proud sounds and displays that had once been their way of showing status and power. They walked out like defeated prisoners who had been given a reprieve from execution. As the last alien representative left the room, Jiwoo remained seated at the head of the table. Through the large windows, she could see the stars that now fell under human authority. Hundreds of star systems that had once been ruled by these ancient alien civilizations were now part of humanity's growing empire. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about underestimating the children of Earth. When pushed to abandon peaceful diplomacy, humans had not simply fought back to defend themselves. They had fought to win so completely that future wars would become impossible. The age of human dominance had officially begun.